Have you ever seen those old clocks or watches that glow in the dark? It seems almost magical, right? But behind that mesmerizing glow lies a dark and tragic story, a story of young women who paid the ultimate price for a little bit of sparkle. This is the story of the Radium Girls. Let's travel back to the early 20th century. The world was captivated by a newly discovered element, radium. Discovered by Marie and Pierre Curie, this mysterious substance glowed with an ethereal greenish-blue light. It was hailed as a miracle cure, a source of endless energy, and the latest craze. Radium was put into everything: cosmetics, toothpaste, butter, water, even chocolate. It was the yid ingredient, and everyone wanted a piece of it. This craze created a booming industry, particularly in watchmaking. During World War I, soldiers needed to see their watches in the dark trenches, and radium-painted dials were the perfect solution. So factories popped up, hiring hundreds of young women to paint these luminous watch faces. For these women, many of whom were teenagers, this was a dream job. The pay was great, much better than the average factory job. They worked with this glamorous, glowing material, and they were even called ghost girls, because they would literally glow when they left work, their hair, clothes, and skin dusted with the magical radium powder. They thought it was fun, a harmless perk of the job. Some even painted their nails and teeth with it for a night out. The companies that hired them, like the United States Radium Corporation in New Jersey, assured them that the paint was completely safe. But they knew it wasn't. While the young women were painting, the male scientists and managers protected themselves with lead screens and tongs. The girls, however, were given no protection at all. In fact, they were taught a deadly technique to get the finest point on their brushes for the tiny numbers on the watch dials. It was called lip pointing. After dipping the brush in the radium paint, they were instructed to put the brush between their lips to give it a sharp, fine tip. Lip dip paint, over and over, hundreds of times a day. With every lip, they were swallowing a small dose of a potent radioactive poison. It wasn't long before the devastating effects began to show. The first to fall ill was Molly Maggia. She started with a toothache. Her dentist pulled the tooth, but the socket wouldn't heal. Instead, it became a festering, painful sore. More teeth were pulled, but the problem only got worse. Her jawbone literally began to crumble. Doctors were baffled. They diagnosed her with syphilis to tarnish her reputation, but Molly and her family knew that wasn't true. Within a year, her entire lower jaw had to be removed. The infection spread, and tragically, Molly died in 1922 at the young age of 24. Her official cause of death was listed as syphilis, a deliberate lie to cover up the real culprit. Soon, more and more of her coworkers to experience a horrifying range of symptoms. Severe anemia, bone fractures from the slightest bumps, and agonizing pain in their jaws and limbs. One woman's spine collapsed. Another's jaw came away in her hands. The radium they had ingested was a bone seeker. It mimics calcium and gets deposited in the bones, where it relentlessly bombards the body with radiation from the inside out, riddling their skeletons with holes like Swiss cheese. The glowing paint that had once seemed so magical was now eating them alive. The companies, of course, denied everything. They claimed the girls were suffering from unrelated illnesses. They paid doctors and dentists to misdiagnose them and to conceal the truth. They used their power and money to discredit a growing number of sick and dying women. But a few brave women decided to fight back. Led by a woman named Grace Fryer, a group of 5 former painters from the New Jersey factory decided to sue the United States Radium Corporation. It was an uphill battle. They were sick, weak, and running out of time. No lawyer wanted to take their case, fearing the power of the huge corporation. It took them 2 years just to find someone willing to represent them. When they finally got to court in 1928, some of the women were so ill they couldn't even raise their arms to take the oath. 2 were bedridden. Their bodies were falling apart, but their spirits were not broken. The press dubbed them the Radium Girls, and their story captivated the nation. The public was horrified to learn about the lip-dip paint technique and the company's cover-up. Under the glare of public scrutiny, the company's lies began to unravel. An independent expert was finally brought in to examine the women. He was Harrison Martland, a medical examiner who developed tests that proved, without a doubt, that their bodies were full of radium and that it was the direct cause of their horrific illnesses. His findings were undeniable. Facing a mountain of evidence and terrible publicity, the company finally decided to settle out of court. The settlement gave each of the 5 women a lump sum of money and a yearly payment for as long as they lived, plus it covered all their medical and legal expenses. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was a victory. They had forced the company to admit its guilt, but the story doesn't end there. The case of the New Jersey Radium Girls inspired others. Another group of workers in Ottawa, Illinois, led by a woman named Catherine Wolfe Donahue, also took their employer, the Radium Dial Company, to court. Catherine was on her deathbed when she testified, propped up on pillows, but her testimony was powerful. They won their case too in 1938. The legacy of the Radium Girls is incredibly important. Their fight for justice led to monumental changes in workplace safety. Their case resulted in the establishment of the right of individual workers to sue their employers for damages from labor abuse. It led to new safety standards, protecting generations of workers from occupational diseases. The scientific studies conducted on them also provided invaluable data on the effects of radiation on the human body, contributing to our understanding of radiation poisoning and cancer. The Radium Girls were not just victims. They were heroes. They were ordinary young women Guangao in extraordinary, terrifying circumstances who found the courage to speak up against a powerful corporation. They fought not just for themselves, but for everyone who came after them. Their bodies were radioactive, and even today their graves will set off a Geiger counter. They glowed in life, and in a way, they continue to glow in death, a haunting but powerful reminder of their sacrifice and their incredible fight for justice. Their light, born of tragedy, has illuminated the path to a safer world for all of us. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as moving as I did, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories from history. See you next time.